it fall kind of the way you thought it would, or did you get some surprises?
Both days, going back to yesterday, yeah, there were some surprises for sure. I think about how I want to handle this. I think I mentioned in an interview last week, we viewed some D very high in this draft, and I think you saw three of them went in the top 11, and we liked all those players a lot. But because they went in the top 11, I think the net effect of that was that Zach Benson maybe fell a couple spots. And I've answered this a few different ways over the last couple of years, but I guess I'll say again, if you combine his skill, hockey sense, compete, and how mature of a two-way game he has at his age, I could make the argument, and I will make the argument, he would be number one in the entire draft class with that combination of a package. So that's awfully hard to pass on. At 13, I think that smells more like a kid that should be going 5 to 10 in the draft. So yeah, we were excited, but yeah, we looked at the D too, and we were excited about some of the D men. Second round. We were very excited about how it fell in the second round, and I didn't hear all of Kevin's interview, but we did try to move a couple times to get players that we had ranked a little bit higher, and we ended up getting the player we wanted without giving up additional draft capital, which was nice.
What was it like to get more D into the prospect?
Yeah, and it's funny, sometimes you get frustrated because for whatever reason, where you're picking, you're trying to stay right off your list, and the D just don't come to you. And we have talked more the last couple of years about, if it's a tiebreaker and they're close to each other, you're going to take the D man. And we would say the same thing about natural centers too, a preference for that. But yeah, it's in the back of your head. You want to get more D in the pipeline. We're not going to chase it. But there were a couple instances where we had players side by side, and we gave preference to the D man.
What made him the type of player that you wanted to get up and grab if you could?
I mean, we probably saw him, every single game he played this year. I personally saw him live, probably over 20 games. He's a kid that came out of almost nowhere. Anders Forsberg, our Swedish scout, did a great job of identifying him early in the year, so I was able to get over and see him in some junior games. But then Team Sweden figured it out pretty quickly, and after not having him on the Halinka tournament, they took him to the November tournament, they took him to the December tournament, they took him to the February tournament, they took him to the April tournament. All year long, he got better. Really interesting person, path. He forced his way into the SHL and the men's team this year. At the end of the year, playing in a relegation series where Malmo could have lost their spot in the SHL, he was playing 10, 11, 12, 15 minutes a game and making a huge impact in those games. I mean, in Sweden, that's as much pressure as playing in the Stanley Cup Finals, really, the impact it can have on an organization depending on which direction it goes. And then all the big tournaments, he's a kid that rises in the big moments. Not a perfect player yet, some inconsistency, talented, fast, very skilled around the net, a hard player. You need it all to come together, but it's a special package, and I think a pretty special, soft-spoken person. It reminds me a little bit of Tyson Kozak, when you hear someone like Michael Pekka say, be careful of the kid, that's a quiet kid, you don't want to screw with him. And this kid's got a little bit of that same edge in him and that quiet compete. And when the temperature rises and there's big moments in the games, he's always at his best.
What do you like about a smaller ice surface? He would be better suited as a winger. Do you agree with that?
I think so. I mean, I don't want to discount, I saw him a lot at the junior level playing center, and when you're that big of a body and you skate that well and your hands are that good, I mean, you guys will see it if you haven't already. He scored some ridiculous goals this year going end to end at the junior level and international competition. So he's got the ability to transport pucks, which would be one of the things you're looking for in a center, but I do think ultimately he's a power winger.
What do you like about McCarthy?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, I do a lot of work with USA Hockey too. He's been on 2 or 3 USA Hockey teams. The people there think the absolute world of him. He's about as high character of a person and player on and off the ice that you can get. I think I was there in Cornwall when he had the knee injury. He was begging USA Hockey to let him continue to play and practice in the tournament. And, thank goodness they had to kind of hold him off, and it ended up being a pretty serious knee injury. I think, like, if he didn't lose those 6-8 weeks this year, there's zero chance he would have been available in the 3rd round. I think the world of Jay Pandolfo and the Boston University staff. He's going to step in there in a pretty prominent role right away. The right shot helps. He's an athletic kid, and I think he's got a really versatile game. I mean, his nature is to be hard to play against and mean, but I actually think he's got some sneaky, puck-moving abilities.
With Sturback, you've got the Michigan State connection with Adam Nightingale, but what else about his game do you like?
Another guy I bet we have, between all of us, over 100 viewings on. I mean, some of them were duplicate, but 2 World Juniors for myself, and under 18 championships for many of us, and then all year long in the USHL. A little bit of a roller coaster season. I mean, I think he showed in the USHL some really high-end games. And then I actually think he played his best hockey at the under 20s and certainly the under 18s. So when he got amongst his peers and in a more comfortable setting, I think he kind of reverted more to the natural player that he was. And he's got some similarities actually to Gavin. I mean, they're both mean, hard to play against kids. Max also has an absolute bomb from the point. I think you see a little bit more of a PP element. Not Sioux Falls as well, but especially with the national team, they lean on him a little bit. A captain, a leader by all accounts on every team he's played for when he plays for his country. And, I'm sure Kevin mentioned it, the development path, going to Michigan State, not just playing for Adam Nightingale, but playing in the Big Ten. He's going to continue to get, bigger, stronger there. And when you meet this kid, it speaks 5 languages, has lived all over the world. The father was a pro player, Russia, Finland, Sweden. His maturity level, he's, wise and way mature beyond his years. So I'm just very confident, he's going to become a little more polished. It's not always going to be about the high compete and the meanness. I think he'll round out his game over the next 2 or 3 years. And I have no doubt he's a 2nd, 3rd pair NHL defenseman. We spent a lot of time with this kid. Graham Beamish, did great work with him. All the crossover scouts got in to see him a lot. In the first year, there was some frustration, I think he would admit himself, in his situation and how he was playing, and after the trade, a little bit of a letdown. But I would compare him, in some ways to Wahlberg. Like, he's got that big skill, power forward element when he's on with the skating. Very good tester at the combine. I mean, both these kids, Wahlberg's got a 6'6" wingspan besides being 6'4", and this kid's a very good athlete at 6'4", and is going to end up being an exceptional skater. Again, he's very raw, he's got to bring it all together. But when you saw his games this year, when he was in that power forward mode, it was really impressive, and surprising to us. I think the trade played into it, and that wall he had after the trade probably dropped the kid that should have been a 2nd round pick to the 4th round.
And to this point, do you guys see similarities between Scott Ratzliff and maybe some Devin Levi, just the cerebral approach to the position, the curiosity factor that you guys like?
Yep, and he has that in spades for sure. Hockey Canada played a prominent role. Has played over some other very prominent goalies in his birth year in Canada when it's on the line for Hockey Canada. Matt Odette at Seattle, I think the world of too. Matt's convinced this kid's going to be an impact starter for Seattle. I don't know if Kevin, referenced this. The father's 6'3", the mother's 5'10". Susie out in Seattle is his first cousin. A great hockey family, Hockey Canada and Seattle rave about the kid. Seamus has done some good work with the kid just to get to know him a little bit. We know the character's good. And yes, that desire to continue to build on his game and then to have the tools. And, like a lot of these kids I'm talking about, erratic at times. There's when he's at his high level, the people talk about him in Hockey Canada and Seattle, like he's not beatable. Now, do we see bad games out of him? Yes. But when those start to go away and you see the high side, that's exciting. And if he grows another inch or two, that's really exciting.